Warning, this show contains adult language, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Welcome to another edition of Up and In It. I'm your host, Adrian Babashoff, and if you're new here, welcome as well. And if you're wondering what the show's about, it's entirely dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life raw. Today's episode 208, Off and Grid Tied City Living, aka City Steading. I wanted to get this, well, before we do that, the background noise, you guys, is my F-350 96 7.3 liter diesel pickup truck. It's my mobile studio. I do these shows when I'm on my work commute, so that's forgive us for the background noise. Once we get the show really rolling, maybe we'll get our own studio. But yeah, I wanted to talk to you guys a lot about the abundance, the hidden abundance in the city, as far as like homesteading. I call it city steading, because I think it's its whole new thing. I think there are people doing it, urban homesteading, urban farmers and stuff like that, but I think in the city, I haven't heard anything too much on it, so I'm hoping that I coined this. That's my little thing. You know, everybody has to have like a little thing. That's like my little thing I hope that I've invented. So it's basically such hidden abundance that we have in the city, sometimes more than we do out in the country or even in the suburbs, you know, and 1 acre lots and stuff like that. Sometimes there's a lot of hidden gems out there. Also, there's more opportunities. Sometimes because of these restrictions, we can actually end up doing a lot more than people who do have tons of land because of the creativity you're forced to have. We're going to talk about that today. Rules and regulations, though, the Department of Make You Sad. We don't really like them, but we need to try to figure out and take these things into considerations before we start doing things. How restrictions increase productivity, as I said, and let's jump right into it. I want to start off with the hidden city abundance. So, what are we doing when we're trying to homestead? We're trying to city stead. We're trying to grow our own food. We're trying to live sustainably. We're trying to produce a lot of our own energy. We need to make some money. We need to make an income and things like that. And we also want to have community. We want to, interact with people, do good by our community, and we're social creatures. But when I look at the first thing of growing our own food, we need such things as compost. And when you think about it, unless you're living in the country, I think that you can get such things as cow manure and chicken manures. I'm kind of at the moment, I may change my mind later, I don't really like these because a lot of them, in my opinion, are full of salts, especially cow manure. Chicken manure is very hot. You got to be careful with it. You got to make sure it's aged just right. And also, I don't know. I don't like the concentration of full-blown, like if you're going to raise cattle, you need the least amount of cattle you need is up to 5 to 10s because they are social creatures just like us, and they need quite a bit of acreage, like 100 acres to be clean, right? So they're not pooping, shitting in the exact same spot and causing more harm than good. Same thing with chickens I look at when they're cooped up. Bless people's hearts, they've got chickens in little coops and stuff like that, like not letting them kind of graze. So, I don't know. Besides all that, I think in the city, we have way more opportunities, such as lawn clippings. And a lot of these things, as long as nobody's spraying pesticides on their lawns, which you can find them. And even if there are to a certain extent where it's once a year or something like that after rains, depending on your wants, your needs, and your opinion about it, I would prefer no pesticides myself, but I know that some people don't really care if there's just some. So the point is that there's leaves, there's that blow off trees and stuff like that, and lawn clippings, and these are things that you can bag up and take to your home, and you can actually apply them directly into your compost pile. And this is green. You have green waste, which is a good thing, full of nitrogen. You also have your your carbon, which is your dead leaves and stuff like that. So there's lots and lots of abundance. I think if you're fringe living, that's what I prefer the best, is when you're in a big city, but you're right at the edge of where the city ends and, say, the suburbs or where the larger properties start. That the edge, as we teach in permaculture, is always got so much more diversity, right? You think about it, you're living in the middle of the city, it's all the same. There's just a bunch of tiny houses, a bunch of backyards. A lot of people are kind of restricted on what they can and can't do. As you move out to the outer part, people have 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, such as where I live in North County, San Diego, California. it opens diversity. So right there at that edge, you get the best of both worlds. So that would be premium spot to be located. You can start messing around, like I said, with the chicken manures if that's what you choose. I would rather prefer like rabbits and goat poop, sheep poop, things like that to mix in my composts. We need to conserve the microbiology depending on where you live. Here in Sunnyside, Southern California, it gets very dry and very hot. We're in a very, at least in San Diego, it's humid, but it's a Mediterranean climate. So in the summertime, it's like a desert almost. Everything just kind of dries up and dies off. We need something to protect the ground, the worms and things like that, so the ground doesn't get rock solid. We need wood chips. And living in the city, there's tons. I think probably more wood chips that you would get, unless you had a wood chipper and you lived, next to in the big country. But you'd still have to grab those things, haul them over to you. You'd have to get rent a wood chipper or buy a wood chipper, and they're not cheap. You'd have to maintenance it. Here in the big city, the big shitty, maybe we can call it, there's tons of trees always falling over, and people see trees as a nuisance. They're cutting them down constantly. And guess what? The tree trimmers, they chip the wood, the leaves and branches and everything, and then they got to go all the way to the dump site, and in some cases pay to dump these things. So sometimes in a big city, you can have these wood chips delivered to you, and you can spread these things all over your backyard. You can use them for compost toilets. You can use them for bedding, like for chickens, all kinds of different uses. They'll break down if you're gardening a little spot. Keep these wood chips there. After about 3, 4 to 5 years, they will not only hold the moisture in your existing garden, but they will start to break down and they will actually create soil. So beautiful, beautiful thing. Next I have on here is local clients. So we look at, if you're, again, on the fringe would be my first choice. You got people growing chickens for eggs and meats and things like that. Even beyond that, hopefully maybe you've got cattle that's out in the farms. So you being the middleman in the right at the fringe living between the big shitty and the urban home developments, you're able to kind of cater to both sides. You've got clients that are readily available. And you've got two types here, right? A lot of produce and things such as eggs, you would be able to sell from the urban areas to collect those eggs and be able to start yourself a CSA or something like that, and you can actually start helping the people sell their eggs to the people in the city, right? You can have these people delivered to you, and then therefore you can distribute because you've got people all the way around you. A lot of clients, there's a lot of things I think that are readily available and at hand, and I think it's an upper advantage from living in the country, from homesteading to actually city steading, because as far as when it comes to income, like I said, it's unmatchable. All those people from the city are buying shit that has to be trucked in from the country, whereas anything that you're producing is right there. I know that you guys are going to say, well, yeah, they've got giant acreage and they're producing a whole bunch, Adrian. Yeah, but your stuff, if you went to spin farms such as I do, which means that's farming, if you do what I do and you're spin farming off somebody else's property, you have multiple properties that you're able to do. You have a lot more square footage, right? You don't have to just stay in the confines of your own home. Now, if you're on the urban fringes too, like where I am, there's people with 1 acre, 2 acres, 5 acres, and a lot of land. I've got a whole acre that I'm using up right now, my newest plot. So guys, yeah, and even the neighbors were asking if I would sell them vegetables. So yeah, you get a lot more opportunity. As far as compost, I look at too is the grocery store waste. Now I think it's getting harder and harder with those rules and regulations that the state and the city and all the government officials and all the different departments are putting on you. But there's little small mom and pop places, I think like Asian markets and stuff like that, Mexican markets. You can actually set out some bins and go collect all of their waste vegetable products, right? And you can take these home and you can have a big giant abundance of compost. And I think these rich type of compost can turn into a business all itself, selling compost, especially if you incorporated worms into that and did worm castings. I prefer this one the best because the worms do all the work for you. I think time for time, it's probably pretty much the same as far as you having to hand-turned compost, if anybody's educated in that matter. You got to make sure it's a certain temperature, make sure that it's moist. You got to flip this stuff, aerate it, whereas the worms pretty much do everything. As long as, I think actually the worms produce so much moisture and also inside the compost that you actually have to drain the juice out. So really, worms, as long as they're protected with a cover or not overheated, they pretty much just go off on their own. Okay, let's move on to selling your solar power back to the city. That's another thing I bet you a lot of people haven't thought about. Now, you can't do this off-grid where you're charging batteries for yourself and you're storing all that energy, say, in your garage with a bunch of car batteries. You have to be grid tied. So for those of you who don't know what that is, that's when you're also getting electricity from the city, but your solar panels are feeding into your home. Well, all the energy that you don't use in a lot of different cities, you'd have to check. That energy goes right back into the grid. It goes through your power lines from your home out to the power lines, and they're able to read these things. So in some places, they'll actually pay you for it, or you'll pay zero on your electric bill. So I thought that was probably a lot of people know, but I think there's a certain amount that don't. And I'm not sure if you'd be able to get that out in the rural areas, like of a homestead. Next, I have rules and regulations, and somebody cutting me off. I got rules and regulations, hurdles. So you want to make sure that a lot of places with like HOAs, homeowners associations and stuff like that, neighbors, it could be a real pain in the ass, I think, living in the big city. Once you start moving out towards the suburbs a little more, like especially where I live, believe it or not, even in Sunnyside, San Diego County, there's still like some country-esque stuff happening out here. So you want to check with your departments, go to your city halls and stuff like that, and make sure you ask permission. Don't just set up and just expect that nothing's going to happen, because they could come and all your hard work can just get shut down. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later here. So yeah, there's lots of different things that you want to check in first. I think just growing a little garden and with wood chips and stuff like that's no problem. But once you start trying to set up like a compost toilet if you wanted to, chickens, definitely, like, you're not putting a cow in the backyard, goats and things like that. All right, so that's a wrap for episode 208. I want to invite you guys over to a premium site. It's a little thing that I'm trying out here, and you're going to find that on Facebook, and that's at Up and In It. The link will be in the description below, and this is completely free. You guys just go over there. But what I want to do for you guys is what we've talked about today. I want to really scale this. I want to talk to you guys how I get free wood chips and a lot of different pointers on what to do. Like once they're delivered, you got to be careful. There's some places like Chip Drop or something, these little apps they have, and they'll dump the stuff when you're not there. They'll block your driveway. There's a lot of different things that I think information that I think would be very useful to you guys. How to build community in all of this. How to acquire free composts, how to purchase animal feed for way lower costs by creating community, how to form that group, extended land use, all kinds of different things. So I'm hoping that this thing will rein you guys in and give you more free content. You do have to join the it's a private group. Just ask to join, and we get everybody in there as right off the bat. We just like to make it private in case that there's some bullies or people trying to talk shit or disrupt the community. So I'm trying to build a community, trying to give more for you guys. So go out and check it out, Up and In It on Facebook, and you'll get an extension of what we talked about today. All right, well, that's the show, guys. If you like this sort of thing, subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, middle finger. I don't care. If it brought you some value, please give me a review. We're trying to get the momentum on the show so we can keep the show going indefinitely. It takes a lot of work. But as I always say, guys, you guys can message me at upandinitshow@gmail.com. Sorry for this show here. I'm trying to drive and I've got people cutting me off, so it kind of threw me off for a loop here. But guys, it's upandinitshow@gmail.com. You guys can comment there. Let me know what you guys want to hear about. It's Up and In It is the name of the whole show. Just Up and In It. You can find that on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and also anywhere where they have podcasts. As I always say, guys, go out there and have yourself a near-life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. Human up. Live it, love it, own it, and bone it, my friends.